Hi there, my name is Missy Fryer and I am the owner of Next Step Dental Resource, which is a practice management company that I started based on my almost 20 years of dental office experience. Been lucky enough to work for an amazing doctor who sat me down a long time ago and said he just wanted to focus on fixing teeth and he wanted me to run the business. And also gave me full reign to do whatever I thought was necessary to make us every year more profitable and efficient than the year before. So that's what I did. I spent a lot of time doing that and making us very modern and efficient and making us as profitable as possible. When I think back to where we were back in the 90s, like it's sad to think about how we used to run and how we used to do things and the mistakes we made. And I always tell him that I'm really sorry that, it took us a few years to get to this point because I think we all could have retired a long time ago had we known then what we know now. But live and learn, right? So that's why I formed Next Step Dental Resource. It's an opportunity for me to give back to everyone else so you can avoid the mistakes that I made and the years of wasted money and time and all that stuff that I don't even want to think about anymore. But my website is nextstepdentalresource.com and there's a ton of blogs. I love writing blogs. There's a ton of them on there with really good practical advice. And that's the message that I want to convey is that I want to help take your practice and mine always to the next step. Let's never settle for where we're at. Let's keep moving everything forward. But you must know that I am in an office every day, so I am speaking to you from a place of, I'm in an office every day. Totally get it. I know what you're going through. I feel your pains because we've had them all as well. And I like to share with offices solutions to things like reducing missed appointments, which we'll talk about here in a second, how to become more organized, how to hire, all of those things. Like I totally get it. I know where you're at. We've been there also. And my website, I think, has some pretty great practical solutions, in particular the blogs. Make sure you check those out. Although there are some pretty great programs on there as well for purchase. But there's a lot of great free information in the blogs that I really do think each one of them has some great nuggets of information that you can share with your team to make yourselves as profitable and efficient as possible. So what I want to talk about today is one of the topics I think I'm most known for, which is how to reduce your missed appointments. So if you're familiar with my website at all, you'll know that some of those systems already exist, but today I want to talk about something a little bit different, and hopefully you can learn something and begin implementing it in your practices like right now. So, okay. Let's talk about those missed appointments because you and I know how much those really cost the practice when they happen. I don't need to go through all the numbers and prove anything to you. You know that when you have a patient on your schedule and you're expecting them to come in and then they don't, that costs the practice a lot of money. And it costs the practice a lot of money, a lot more money than you think it would. It's not just the production for that time. You've also lost the ability to call anyone else and fill in that time slot most likely because it's too late, but you've also lost future opportunity with that patient. In other words, if they're not there, you can't further create a relationship. You can't discuss possible treatment with them. I mean, when a patient just no-shows, you just lose in so many ways. And I don't know that everyone in the office always understands that. But the truth of the matter is that it's just ridiculously costly when a patient doesn't show up. So let's talk about a couple things. I look at my schedule every day, and our doctor is a general dentist, and I look at our schedule every day, and I group all of our patients into one of three categories. The first one would be new patients. So we'll look at the number of new patients on our schedule every day. The next category I look at is hygiene patients. And then the third category is sort of everything else. It's all the patients who are getting treatment done. So when I group those patients, I group them up every day. And let's say I walk into the morning and we see about 30 patients a day, sometimes 35, sometimes 27 or whatever. Let's just say we see about 30 patients a day. If I walk in the morning and look at that schedule and I see that there are 30 patients on the schedule, by the time we leave, ideally, I'd like all 30 of those patients to show up. Now, just for simplicity's sake, let's say I had 10 new patients 10 hygiene patients and 10 patients with treatment. Ideally, I would like 10 out of 10 for each one of those categories, right? Makes sense? You have 100% patient attendance that way. So I'm going to pause right there and further explain another idea. Whenever someone comes to me and says that they have an issue with their missed appointments, I ask them to put those patients into those categories. Because I think it's very important to know where the problem is in your practice. Is it with new patients? Is it with treatment? Or is it with hygiene? Or is it with more than one or all of them? I think you'll be interested to find out where your problem really is. And I'd also be interested to see if you can estimate what your patient attendance is, and then go back through and do the math and see what it really is. See, what happens a lot of times is offices will call me and say, I need help with my, we have missed appointments, it's going crazy. We need some help with it. And I will say to them, off the top of your head, where do you think the problem is? Or can you tell me what percentage of your new patients show up, or hygiene, or treatment patients? And what typically happens is the doctors or the front desk, they will give me a number, and then we'll go back and we'll do the math over the last couple of months, and their number is way off. And it's interesting to me, not only is their number way off, but everyone in the office has like a different number in mind. So in other words, unless you go through and do the math, you don't really know where the problem is, and if you have more than one problem. But once you figure out where the issue is, then you have to implement certain strategies to solve the issue, right? So step one, go back and check to see where your missed appointment problem is. So just to kind of reiterate that, if you have those 30 patients, and let's say you have 10 new patients, 10 hygiene, and 10 recalls, if you have 6 hygiene patients that show up that day, that would be a 60%, right? 6 out of the 10. Now, let's further define what a broken appointment is real quick, just so we're all on the same page here. So I look at a missed appointment as someone who flat out no shows and no calls on you that same day. They don't come in at all, they don't tell you, you're ready and waiting, and they just don't show up on you. Or I also like to add in with that it's a patient who is scheduled for that day, but then they call you at some point during the day and say, I can't come in later on today, or whatever the case is. So I look at a missed appointment as a same day behavior. You may look at it differently, but for our conversation here, just so you know, I'm looking at it as a same day behavior. Now, if someone calls you 3 weeks ago and says that they need to reschedule, well, whatever. And they're scheduled out in 3 weeks, you have time to refill that appointment slot, right? So I'm not really concerning myself with those people. For all intents and purposes, we're thinking about broken appointments as being a same day behavior. Okay, so let's go back to those categories. So let's say in our practice, we decide that all 3 categories are a huge deal, which, by the way, your categories may be different depending on what your office is. If you're a specialty office, it may be, you may group your appointments differently. Remember, I always talk from my own experience and how we do things in our practice. So in our practice, we have those 3 categories. So, okay, let's talk about the new patients. New patient no-shows are like maddening to me. I used to get so furious when new patients wouldn't show, because typically of the amount of marketing dollars that you put in to even attract those people in the first place. So now, again, the system that I use is a new patient reservation system, which is a credit card reservation system for your new patients. Now, let me just pause on that and explain something here. Many years ago, the doctor and I, we decided that we needed to get some more new patients, because that's always what people think, right? If they get all these new patients, that'll be the solution to their problem. More new patients, more new patients. Well, that's not always the case. I like to say, before you invest money in new patients, let's look at your practice currently and see if there are any internal problems in your practice with your attendance. Because if you've got issues with your current patients not coming in, guess what's going to happen with those new patients? They're just going to do the same behavior, and it's just going to keep cycling over and over, and it's going to be maddening for you, and you're just going to be, trying to figure out this problem again, and, it's never going to end. So what I usually tell offices is, before you go and start spending all this money doing marketing, fix your problem internally first. In other words, get your hygiene appointments under control, get your treatment patients under control, and then you can start to invite new patients into a fixed system. not into a broken system where bad habits and behaviors are just going to keep perpetuating. So let's go back to those new patients. Years ago, and some of you may have heard this story before, it's on the reservation system, and I've written about it endlessly and talked about it, but just let me give a little brief synopsis of this, what led to the new patient reservation system. So many years ago, we decided to do some radio ads for our practice, which we had never done radio before, but it was super fun. Doctor and I went down to the station, we recorded a bunch of commercials, and we wrote them too, and it was just a lot of fun. And then, we were, Z-list celebrities for a while the commercial was going off. Friends and family would hear it. It was kind of fun. But here's what happened. We had these really good commercials, I thought, that we, like I said, we wrote ourselves, and we offered an incentive in the ad, and we knew when the ad was going to go off, so we were, ready by the phones to handle the phone calls properly. And we were really excited when the ad started running because the phones started ringing right away. And what happened was we ended up with about 30 new patients who were scheduled, and we were really excited because that's a lot of new patients in such a short time. And so we were just really excited to see what this would do for the practice. But what ended up happening was, out of those 30 new patients, only about 15 of them ended up actually coming in. And at that time, we were reserving about 90 minutes for new patients. And like I said, we had offered an incentive, so we kind of bought some extra goodies and things to entice these people into coming in. But it was a total bummer when only 15 of them ended up showing up. So, I thought about how much money we had spent even just purchasing the airtime, not to mention our time writing the commercial, going down to the station, recording the commercial, and then sort of, making myself available at the office when the phone would ring so I could handle those new calls properly. There's a lot of effort that went into that, and we were really, really bummed out when only about half of those patients showed up because, you think about 30 new patient visits, approximately, you think about what that could approximately bring in for your practice, and then what 15 ended up bringing in. You think about what you spent, and your ROI is just really not that great. And you think, well, I'd like to try this again, but I don't know that this is really working for us. I mean, it's not really worth the investment. It's not that we did a bad job on the commercials. It's because those patients weren't coming in. Like, we couldn't, for a while, couldn't quite figure out why they weren't coming in. I mean, I know we're dentistry, and not everyone loves dentistry, but we made the whole process so simple for the patients. So we thought, we figured that they would all come in, but they didn't. And right around that time, Dr. Fryer was, actually a few months later, he was going on a trip. And when he went on the trip, he had to book an airline, book a hotel, book a rental car, and all of those places asked for a credit card. And he came back from this trip and he said, this is the missing piece here. When we try this radio ad again, I only want people who are serious about coming in, not someone who just hears a commercial and makes an impulsive call to a dentist. I want to weed out those people. I want to raise the bar on who we're bringing into this practice. And so he said, I want you to start taking a credit card reservation. And I said, you're totally crazy. How are you going to do that? People aren't going to go for that. But he said, I don't care. We need to do something because we need to figure out how to make our marketing dollars worth more. He said, imagine if all of those patients came in, what that would mean for our practice today. So I spent some time trying to figure it all out, and as you imagine, it was a little bit tricky for me to figure out at first. But then I realized that just like with anything in life, it's all in the presentation. And if you present something poorly to a patient, then they're going to take it poorly. But if you don't present it that way, if you have the confidence and the skill set to present something to a patient, then guess what? They're going to be cool with it. So that's a little bit about the new patient reservation system that I have available on my website. But I didn't finish the story yet. Oh my gosh. So what happened was, after I sort of figured out this system and I figured out how to make it work in our office, we ran the radio ad again. And that time we also got 30 new patient calls. And except that time, every single one of those patients did come in. So think about, our initial marketing investment, which I think was like $5,000 or something. I mean, think about when you get all of those patients to come in versus only about half, how much more, you can end up, producing on something like that. So anyway, that sold us, and we realized that once, the new patient reservation system was something that we were never going to not do again, because we wanted a practice filled with patients who wanted to come and see us and who took us seriously. And by implementing the reservation system, what happened was we finally placed a value on ourselves that taught the patients that we were serious about seeing them. We weren't just an office you could blow off and it would be okay. We are going to be someone that you had to take seriously. And if you couldn't come in, that's okay. Just let us know. That's all we've ever asked for. I don't believe in punishing people after the fact by sending out a missed appointment bill. Those things just never work. But if you get to the problem before it's a problem, and you maybe weed out any people who, if there is a patient who doesn't want to fulfill the reservation system, then they don't make an appointment at our office. And that's okay. We can't be everyone's dentist. We do, however, want to see the people who want to see us, and we're going to work really hard for those people who want to come and who have made a commitment to our practice. Make sense? So going back to the missed appointment thing, if we look back at those 3 categories that I talked about earlier, the first one here would be the new patients. Well, for our practice, the new patient reservation system is what we do to ensure our 100% or 99.9% new patient attendance rates. I am not screwing around anymore with putting thousands of dollars into some sort of marketing plan or whatever and only to not get as much possible back as I possibly can. So that system has totally changed our practice. We've just raised the bar on our whole patient base, and we have a practice filled with people who want to come and who want to see us. Now, this is one of those things that I wish I would have known back in 1997 when I first started, because at that point we were just making appointments for people and they were coming in and they'd show up or they'd not, and we'd allow that bad behavior to perpetuate. We're just inviting that behavior, into our office over and over again. And, I always say that the practice you are today is the practice that you've been training to be this whole time. And things just don't happen. You've set the bar, set the scene for that to happen. So, we've been using the reservation system for a while now, but I wish I would have thought about it 20 years ago. I think we'd be in a much different place right now. I feel like we're just many years behind because, it took us so long to sort of think about it and to get it all started. So anyway, that system is available on my website. The new patient reservation system, which teaches you how to go from booking appointments to making reservations with your practice. So patients are no longer just, making some sort of willy-nilly dental appointment. They are booking a reservation with your practice. So even there, that just sort of changes the connotation a little bit and makes patients take you a lot more seriously. So let's talk about real quick, I'm going to skip over to the current patients who have treatment. Well, that to me is one of the easiest problems to fix in the practice. And it all revolves around having clear financial conversations with your patients, offering monthly payment options, through a third-party financing, not through your office, because, you're a dental office, not a bank. If it works for you, fine, but it never worked for us, so we use a third-party financing. But having patients who understand what their treatment is, having patients who are treated like a rock star from the time they initially call your office to when they come in, to making them feel like, like that you're listening to them, like that you have a great relationship, that you have really spent a lot of time building rapport with that patient, and giving those very firm, clear financial expectations up front really does allow for patients to take your practice seriously when it comes time to scheduling treatment. I feel like one of the biggest reasons that patients don't come in for treatment is because they say that they can't afford it. What often happens is they will make appointments, I think, because they're there and maybe they feel a little guilty, but then they just end up not showing up for those appointments. So having a system in place to prevent that is huge. On my website, I do have the financial system if you need some help with the conversation, if you need some form examples. I also have the deposit system, which is part of the financial system, which teaches your office how to collect a deposit when scheduling the treatment. So if a patient has the deposit, if the patient has a deposit to put down, they're more likely to come back for treatment because they've already invested something into your practice. And if they don't have a deposit to put down, then having them contact you when it's convenient for them, i.e., don't have to schedule every single patient. If, finances truly are an issue for a patient, then, let them come to you when the time is right for them. So, having those discussions beforehand are crucial. And also just doing good dentistry and being good people who are genuinely interested in your patients, to express that value to them every step of the way, so by, just again, making the patient feel like a rock star, by having the staff all supporting each other, complimenting each other's work, letting the patients hear and see those things, giving your patients more confidence in you, that's all part of it too. But, as far as the current patients with treatment, that's also available on my website. And, there's a lot more information on there as well. Now, let's talk about that third category, which I've gotten so many calls about recently, because this is a system that I don't have on my website. So this is one that I really want to talk to you about and share some information. Ideally, I'd like to put together like a class where we can all do this together. We can role play and practice. So if this is something you're interested in, let me know, because I think it would be really, really fun. But let's talk about those hygiene patients and how we can reduce those missed appointments with the hygiene patients. So I'm going to pause here for a second and let's review the first two, which is the reservation system and then the financial and deposit system. That's for new patients and your current patients. Now, some of the things that we do for them are going to carry over into this hygiene protocol. And I do want to say, actually, there's a bunch of things that sort of overlap all of these. And the first thing that I'm going to tell you here that overlaps the other systems also is to move away from talking about appointments and making appointments, but you're going to start booking reservations in your practice. So on all of our business cards, on our website, anything relating to patients, on our emails, our newsletters, we are always referring to our appointments as reservations. And the first day a patient referred to their own appointment as a reservation, I about had a heart attack, because finally the message we were trying to convey by saying, let's reserve some time for you. What time can we reserve for you on Tuesday? What's the better day for your reservation? Saying those things over and over. All of us, our entire team, doctor included, hygienist, everyone, always referring to them as reservations, has helped to elevate the importance of the appointment. And what that's done is that has increased our value in our patient's mind. So if you have an appointment somewhere or a reservation, which one has a better connotation to it? I think it's the reservation. And I think that's one of those things that in a patient's mind, it means more. So we're going to plaster that word, we're going to use that word everywhere, all day long, because I want our patients to know that we are serious and this just isn't an appointment they can blow off. So I encourage you to start using that word, reserve or reservation. I encourage you to redesign any appointment cards that you may have, and they're reservation cards, and even on our cards themselves, they say reservation date, reservation time. That's super important to me that we're always using that word. So that's huge. That's something you can start doing today. Even when we're confirming, we like to say things like, Mrs. Smith, I'm calling to remind you that we have tomorrow at 2 o'clock reserved just for you with the doctor, right? So, which brings me to my next thing. When we're confirming appointments, Now I know everyone has their own way of doing it. That's fine. Here's how we do it. First of all, let me just pause on that for a second and say that I think it's super important for hygiene patients to be pre-appointed 6 months in the future by the hygienist that's seeing them that day. And it's very important for the hygienist to say something like, when they're done seeing their patient, if that's the time they're going to schedule the next one, for them to say, okay, Mrs. Smith, would you like us to reserve another Tuesday at 3 o'clock for you in 6 months? So, again, to use that word and to let that patient know that they're scheduling with a hygienist, with the person that saw them today. So that person is going to know if they're not there in 6 months, which, I think in the past, patients thought that they were like slipping under the radar if they were a no-show, but we all know. But anyway, I think that scheduling with the patient is, having that hygienist schedule with the patient is hugely important. So everyone uses the word reserve or reservation. Scheduling with a hygienist for 6 months out and having that hygienist use the words reserve and reservation, huge. And then confirming. So let's talk about that. So I am, I believe in a multi-step approach to confirming appointments. So everyone's different. I understand that. Here's what works really well for us. And our hygiene attendance is, ridiculously high, near 100%. So I know we've got to be doing something right. So here's the thing. There are a couple of steps that we use to confirm for hygiene. So number one is I still like to send out old-fashioned postcards about 2 weeks before appointments. Call me crazy, I know, but you know what? It works really well because our patients, they have come to expect them, and I don't want to take that away from them. And they all always, not all, but a lot of them tell me that they stick them up on the fridge. That's hugely important to me, that they're looking at us all the time when they go into their fridge every day. So I like having that there. So we do send those out about 2 weeks before, and the postcards do say time reserved. We have a reservation for it. I don't have the exact verbiage. I don't have it on me right now, but it does say reservation, time reserved. And it does ask for a notice if they need to change their reservation. Now, it asks for a notice. I mentioned earlier, I don't charge people fees for after the fact and whatever, but, it does say something like, kindly or respectfully give a 48-hour notice if you do need to reschedule or if you do need to change your reservation or something like that. But those are, our patients love those. And so we're going to, we also use them with some marketing stuff. So it's got a couple purposes to it. So I'm not really changing that ever, at least not anytime soon. So we do the postcards. We also send out an email reminder about a week before their appointment. I'm sorry, their reservation. We do send out an email reminder, and in the subject, it does say reservation reminder. I'm sorry, it says please reply dental reservation reminder. So what I'm doing is I'm asking for the patient to reply back to confirm whether or not they're going to be there. So they have to tell me yes or they have to tell me no. The beauty about sending it a week ahead of time is that we start getting those replies back almost immediately. And if they do reply back and they can't come in, I have some time to figure out, if I can get someone else in there or not. It gives me some time. If they don't reply back at all, I'm not going to assume that they're not coming in or that they are coming in. I'm going to move on to the next step, which is to call them late morning the day before. So let me just sort of re-explain a couple things. We send out the email about a week before. We do ask for a reply. This only works because at every appointment, we update contact information like crazy. Phone numbers, address, email, all that good stuff, because it changes for a lot of people all the time. So we have a system for that too, where we have one person designated every day to make sure she talks to everyone as they come in to make sure all their information is updated. And so we send out the email and we ask for a reply back. Now, if we're seeing about 30 people a day, we have email for probably, I want to say about 70% of our patients, we have an email address for, maybe a little bit, maybe about between 65 and maybe 75, about 70% email addresses for our patients. So we start getting back a bunch of replies right away. So even if we send out, for that day, if we send out 20 emails for the following week, usually we start getting them back right away, and we probably end up with 10 or 15 replies back within a couple of days. That's hugely important for us to know. And our patients know that if they reply back to that email, that's the last confirmation they're going to get. We're not going to call them again. That's going to be it. So for those who don't reply back, what we'll do is we'll call them the day before in the morning. And because we're updating information, contact information, and we're finding out where we can reach them at during different parts of the day, again, usually we confirm late morning, we call them, and it is very important for us to actually speak with the patient and get a verbal confirmation by saying, "Hi, Mrs. Smith, it's Missy from Dr. Fryer's office. I'm calling to remind you that we have 2 o'clock tomorrow reserved just for you with Dr. Fryer." And then the patient says, "Oh yeah, I'll be there, whatever." But actually speaking with the patient and getting that verbal confirmation is huge, and using the words reserved. I can't even tell you, if you just do that one thing alone, you will see an improvement in your attendance just by using the words reserve and reservation when you're confirming, and making sure that you're speaking slowly and carefully for your patients to understand and to take in what you're saying, and to let that sort of sink in their brains for a minute, that you have that time reserved just for them. Okay? So by calling them and making sure that we actually speak to the patient, that is huge. I don't like leaving messages. I don't like, I just want to talk to that patient. I just want to get that verbal confirmation from them. And honestly, for us, that's it. It's not, some huge big secret for us. Just sort of, off the top of my head here, there really isn't too much more that I can think of that we do, other than we have the hygienist schedule, that we make sure that we use a multi-step approach to get a hold of them, and that we're using the words reserve and reservation. And again, those words are everywhere. It's all over our email, it's on our cards, it's everywhere. And because we're just trying to set we just want to impress upon our brand being one that takes practice appointments, reservations seriously. And in the past, what we would maybe have done is we would have, if a patient no-showed or forgot to come in or whatever, and then they call us back and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to come in this morning." My gut instinct before would have been to say, "Well, that's okay." But the truth of the matter is that it's not okay. Right? So if a patient no-shows on you, what I like to do is try to give them a call, and if I have to leave a message, I will say, "Mrs. Smith, I'm calling because we have 10 a.m. reserved for you, and it's after that now. We were wondering if you were on your way. Dr. Fryer and the hygienist are ready and waiting." And I leave that as my message if I have to, or even if the patient answers, I'll say the same thing. But I need them to understand that we are ready and waiting for their reservation. Now, let me say that instituting all these little tricks and verbiage and all this took a long time. It took years for our patients to sort of flip the way they thought about us and realize that we wanted to take all this much more seriously than we did. And again, if I would have known all this stuff back in the 90s, we wouldn't have struggled for the next, 8 years or so trying to figure out all of these things. Anyway, live and learn, like I said. So as far as missed appointments go, there's a couple other things that I wanted to mention. One is that I don't know if you know what the Quality Dental Plan is, but I love it because it fits along with our office brand and what I want, the message I want to convey to my patients, which is, efficiency, and I want to, make everything as, as streamlined as possible. And one of those ways is because we offer the quality dental plan for our patients. And it fits along with all this missed appointment stuff too, because with the quality dental plan in our practice, our patients pay for their yearly membership fee at one time. So if you don't know, quality dental plan is our in-house dental savings plan. Look them up online. They're great people to work with. We do offer that product in our office. And with that product, our patients know that they're paying for their 2 visits at once, so they're more likely to show up for the next visit if they've already paid for the first one. For your treatment patients, let's talk about that for a second. If a patient is in for a hygiene appointment and the doctor says, ooh, this tooth here is going to need a crown, we'll have to have you back for that. If we can't do it that day, then ideally you would like to try to collect the deposit or the payment at the time of scheduling, because guess what? If the patient has invested something into you, they're going to show up for next time. There's lots of these little things that we can, do to really make our patients come in. Another trick that I like is, I'm pretty good at, I study the schedule all day long. I know who's coming in. And one of the things I like to do is always sort of be prepared if the phone rings and it is someone that is scheduled for that day and is about to, maybe cancel. So, I'm always looking at the caller ID and, if there's a name there, or, there are software programs that exist that will pull up that patient information for you instantly as they're calling. And, let's say Mrs. Smith has an appointment today at 3 and it's 10 a.m. And if I see her, if her information pops up for me, I'm thinking that she may be calling to cancel the appointment today. So one of the things I always like to advise is to catch that before it becomes a problem, right? So if Mrs. Smith calls and she says, "Hi, Missy, it's Mrs. Smith," I will sort of gently interject and say, "Oh yeah, hi, how are you? We're excited to see you at 3 o'clock today. We have 45 minutes reserved just for you." I like to beat her to the punch and let her know that we have that time reserved, because I understand emergencies happen, bad weather happens. I get it. There are times when your patient truly can't come in, but the truth of the matter is that more often than not, they can. They're just choosing to, go out to lunch with their friend or go to the mall or anything else because, we're the dentist. They don't want to come in for that. So, what I'd like to do is try to prevent those as often as possible, the breaking appointments for a silly reason. So I can't tell you how many times I've said that to someone and they've paused and said, "Ooh, I was going to cancel today, but now that you put it that way, I'll see you at 3 o'clock or whatever." I wrote a blog about that a couple years ago because it's so funny to me how many times you can actually prevent that from happening. Again, just by, being on your toes a little bit and saying, recognizing who's calling and recognizing why they may be calling. And they might be calling to say, "Do you have anything open earlier?" Or, "Can I bring my husband today too to be seen?" But also recognize and be a step ahead that they may be calling to cancel. And we know how expensive that is for patients, or for the practice, when that happens. So always trying to prevent that, trying to make our practice as efficient and as profitable as possible. So that's that, I think, for now. I'm always available, online, and you can search for me on Facebook under Missy Fryer or Next Step Dental Resource, or again, you can email me at missy@nextstepdentalresource.com. Check out my blogs and all that good stuff. There's a ton of fun stuff there for you. And let me know what other questions you have, and I'd be more than happy to talk about any other topic. But as far as these broken appointments go, consistency, patience, make sure your whole office is on the same page. Be very consistent with what you guys say to your patients. Spread your message consistently, that you are an office that takes things seriously, and you can show them by saying the words "reserve," by having it written everywhere. Again, on your cards, or any information you hand out to your patients, just take out the word "appointment" and put "reservation" in there. Let everyone know that you are serious, and give it some time and a lot of consistency, and you too will see your appointment rates, attendance rates, go through the roof. Take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.